Hey friends, uh, if you're just hopping on, that probably means that you didn't join us this past Sunday for our Zoom gathering, and we missed you. Uh, we discussed, what we chatted about first was last week, common prayer. That was last week's spiritual exercise. And so, if you haven't done that, I would just invite you to chat about that with the people in your household. So, uh, what about that exercise, saying those prayers, common prayer, what did you find challenging about that? And what did you find life giving? So, as we jump in today, we're just going to do a quick recap there first. So, pause the video and discuss that with one another. All right. Well, it wouldn't surprise me if the answers were mixed for many of you. Um, not everyone is suited to just one way of connecting with God. We all have different temperaments, we have different personalities, and it means we all connect with God differently. Some folks call it's like your spiritual temperament. So think back on your most meaningful experiences with God. Like for some people, they say, "Well, that really happens through music. It's a powerful song that I hear." For some people, they'd say it's ritual, it's image, it's symbol. It's like it was a communion service, or it was a stained glass window in a cathedral, or it was an art piece. Like the first week, the I Listen. For some folks, they'd say it's solitude. It's it doesn't matter what I'm doing. It's that it's just me and Jesus. For some folks, they'd say, no, it's service. It's like an MDS trip, a helping hands meal, a service project. For some folks, they'd say it's solidarity. It's working for change. It's like attending a protest or witnessing systemic change of some kind. Some folks would say it's being outdoors. It's in creation. That's my cathedral. For some folks, they'd say it's words. It's something in the Bible that popped out or something that someone wrote that popped out. Other people would say it's just time with others. It's sharing relationships of love, and I connect with God in that way. Some folks would say it's really in my imagination. It's contemplation. It's the mystical. So they'd say like the open worship service, the listening time, or they'd say a dream that I had. I felt like God was speaking to me. Some folks would say it's reason. It's a really digging into Bible study or a sermon or a lesson in science that opened your eyes to the complexity of creation. You're connecting with God through your intellect. Some folks would say it's corporate worship. It's like it's the stuff we do together. Now, we all have these certain ways that we would rather connect with God. Of something I said, probably something there you're like, yeah, that I like it, trying to connect with God in that way. Um, and then we have these ways that we'd say, I'd rather not. I'd rather not try that for whatever reason. It just doesn't jive with me. And there are good arguments to be made that say, like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Like, if you are connecting with God in a certain way and it's working for you, there are arguments that would say just keep on keeping on. Don't change it. And then at the same time, there are good arguments to be made that the path to spiritual wholeness doesn't involve like narrowing your approach to God, it involves broadening your approach to God. In his classic book, Life Together, let the boat go by. In his classic book, Life Together, Dietrich Bonhoeffer says, let him who cannot be alone beware of community, and let him who is not in community beware of being alone. Each by itself has its profound perils and pitfalls. So, what Bonhoeffer is suggesting there is that you should broaden your approach to God, not narrow your approach to God. So let's let's come up with a real life example here. So let's think of someone who connects with God alone out in nature as an example. Uh, they say, the cathedral is my forest, the forest is my cathedral, and they say, the forest really invites me to pray, and when I'm out in the beauty of the beach, the rocks, the mountains, the trees, uh, that's really what's inviting me to connect with God. Well, that's wonderful. And if that's the only place you pray, you could turn into a lonely, isolated hermit. Rather than the forest being the place that you go to receive from God, you could start treating the forest as the place where you go to escape from everything. And in so doing, if you're not careful, you might actually run away from the things God is calling you to do by going to the forest. You might run away from being the person that God wants you to be in this world that is messy and broken and dysfunctional because you're just trying to get away from it all and escape. So rather than the forest enabling you to live for God in the world, the forest could disable your ability to live for God in the world. So you see how all these ways of connecting can help us connect with God and to serve God and love others, or they can kind of hinder us. So I'm using the forest as one example, uh, and it's because this week our spiritual exercise is outside prayers. But before we jump into that, let's just take a moment to discuss this. So discuss this with the folks in your household. What is a way of connecting with God that is the most natural to you? And then what is a way of connecting with God that really isn't natural to you, but you suspect that it's probably necessary for you to be whole? So go ahead, pause the video, and discuss that. All right, outside prayers. The Bible's clear in telling us that creation witnesses to all humanity of the goodness of God. It's the birds and the trees and the rivers and the mountains that are all telling you something about the goodness of God if you will pay attention. So the Psalms repeat this theme over and over. Like the rivers are clapping their hands, the mountains are shouting, the forest is singing for joy to the Lord. And over, Jesus uses these examples of creation to tell us something about God. Look at the birds of the air. Look at the flowers. Look at the vines. The Apostle Paul, he writes, since the creation of the world, God's invisible qualities, that's his eternal power, his divine nature, have been clearly seen, being understood from what has been made. It's creation, so that people are without excuse. It's Romans 1:20. And Paul and Barnabas use creation as a primary witness. It's like God's primary witness to people. Uh, when they are trying to introduce the people of Lystra, the city of Lystra, to the living God, they show them the witness of creation. They say, God has shown kindness by giving you rain. It's raining right now a little bit from heaven and crops in their seasons. He provides you with plenty of food and fills your hearts with joy. It's Acts 14:17. So this week, I'm offering you a prayer exercise for each day that will get you outside and get you listening to the witness of creation. What is creation telling you about God? Now, for those of you who have physical limitations, each day's prayers, I tried to make them as accessible as possible. So a lot of them you can do from a window in a house if you need to. As far as time, they should only take 10 minutes, except for Saturdays. Saturdays, you might want a little more time. The rest of them, they will be well worth your time. I hope you will take the time to do them. One note about rain. Friday, we're supposed to receive some rain, but who knows? Uh, and so I put the rain prayers on Friday. Now, I'd say if it starts raining earlier in the week, if it's Monday and it's like, wow, it's rainy and I'm doing my prayers right now, just do the Friday prayers. Get that rain prayer out of the way so that you had some rain when you did it. Just swap days, Monday and Friday or whatever day it is. So, with that said, we're going to read through today's prayer exercise, and then I hope that you will get outside today and go do it. Stumps, shoots, and nurse logs. 10 minutes. Go on a walk or sit outside. While you are outside, see if you can find a stump, or better yet, see if you can find a stump with a shoot of growth coming out of it. As you look at the stump, reflect on your own broken dreams, disappointments, wounds, and experiences of alienation and failure. Reflect on the ways you have not been the person you wanted to be. Reflect on how the world is not the way it should be. In what way are you like this stump? In what way is the world like this stump? The Bible begins and ends with the tree of life. Genesis 2:9, Genesis 3:22, and Revelation 22:1 through 3. In the beginning of the Bible, humanity quickly loses access to the tree of life because they have digested the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil, and that fruit is more than they can metabolize on their own. Creation and relationships unravel. The tree of life is depicted in the stories and the art of the ancient Near East as a plant called the old man becomes young. The prophet Isaiah depicted his people as a stump cut down, ruined, uninhabited, deserted, and ravaged. Isaiah 6:11 through 13. Isaiah envisioned a shoot of fresh growth coming out of that old chopped off stump. Isaiah 11:1. Isaiah saw that shoot of new growth coming from the stump of Jesse as a person of wisdom, understanding, counsel, might, knowledge, fear of the Lord, with the Spirit of God resting on him, and giving decisions of justice for the poor and the needy of the earth. Isaiah saw a new world coming where none would ever again harm or destroy, a world where weapons were transformed into tools of cultivation, and where all the nations would rally to the root of Jesse. Isaiah 11 and Isaiah 2:1 through 5. The story of the Bible ends with the same tree of life offering fruit in every season, available for the healing of the nations. The planet that was cursed with thorns, conflict, and pain is no longer cursed. Revelation 22:1 through 3. So reflect on the stump in front of you and the growth coming out of it. What is the stump and the shoot of growth telling you about God and about our world? Here's our closing prayer today. Shout for joy to the Lord, all the earth. Shout for joy before the Lord, the King. Let the sea resound and everything in it, the world and all who live in it. Let the rivers clap their hands. Let the mountains sing together for joy. Let them sing before the Lord, for he comes to judge the earth. He will judge the world in righteousness and the peoples with equity. Love you, friends.